One of the things that both the Trump administration and prior administrations, Biden, et cetera, were focused on, right, was infrastructure, getting that fiscal spending out the door. So for us, when we're thinking about 2026 as a possible beneficiary, it could be those companies that are geared towards data, AI, and the data center builds, right, that are required to support that technology.
I want to ask about a recent news that hit the wire yesterday. So we have the SEC prioritizing Trump's push to cull quarterly earnings, basically report twice a year. What do you make of that? Because I've been hearing split opinions. On one hand, we have analysts saying it's too tedious when you do these quarterly reports, but then on the other hand, maybe that will lead to more fraudulent activities or things like that, or maybe I'm being too pessimistic.
My first thought, just as not being an equities analyst, was what do the equities analysts think about this? So this isn't my area of expertise. But what I can say is that one of the things the Trump administration right out the gate made an emphasis was that for every regulation they put in play, they would, tenfold undo regulation. So for me, this is just an example of trying to loosen regulation in every opportunity.
And then there's also overnight, we got news that Stephen Miran was confirmed, but also that Lisa Cook is going to stay in the board according to the court. How do you make up that composition of the FOMC and how that will shape policy moving forward in the Fed?
Well, the situation with Lisa Cook, right, that is going to be continually adjudicated. This isn't a done deal, right, done story. What's important for us when we're thinking about the long run, though, is that getting that seat for Trump is critical to having true influence. Right now, you have Miran, who might signal, right, the desires of the president. I think the consensus here all morning has been that he will. But that getting that opening, right, with Cook is critical to continuing to actually implement a lower interest rate environment, regardless of some of the more macroeconomic factors.
We continue with Monica Guerra, public policy head at Morgan Stanley Wealth Management. Thank you for joining us across the nation on a really busy day. And the Fed decides, we'll do it tomorrow afternoon. Bramo, John Farrow, and myself, really looking forward to that. A really, really key meeting. 10-year yield, 4.04%, coming down a little. It'll be interesting to see, say during the press conference, do we get a 3.99 at 10-year? Monica, on public policy, part of this is the upset. And I don't want you to do the political strategy angle. A lot of people are bored by it all right now. But the fact is we're drowning in retirements from the Senate, retirements from the House. Is it going to be like, is your sense, whatever happens with President Trump, that it's a whole new world after all in 2027 or 2028?
I think there could be a new, page turned.
Generational turn.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things that, in my, not necessarily Morgan Stanley conversations that I have, is just about that leadership planning and the fact that if you're observing this longer term trend impacts to, the makeup of the Senate and the House, there hasn't maybe been the best, I would say, legacy building, right, within that lower, or within, the younger generation. One of the questions I get from our clients consistently is, who's next, right? Who could run for president and win on both sides, right? This isn't just a Trump versus everyone else. This is who actually succeeds Trump. And so that's a big question mark. We have some folks that, we're keeping an eye on, but there is a leadership void that is pending.
From where you sit as head of public policy in Morgan Stanley Wealth Management, what are your clients' biggest concerns at this point in time? I assume there will be many, but if you could rank the first, what would it be?
One of the things that you have to remember with wealth management clients is that they're looking at not just the rate environment, right? Because they're very interested in keeping low interest rates generally lower. Not everyone, right? But if we're thinking about access and liquidity around housing, that's a big question. We talk a lot about taxes and tax changes. So as Tom here knows, we've done deep dives on OBBA. And then the other thing that we're really focused on from the consumer side of the equation is tariff impact, tariff revenues that are coming in. Now, I'm looking at it right from that fiscal policy lens, but what does that actually mean for the consumer? And so we're starting to see some of that pass through occur right now. But again, it's still looming, right? We don't have we still have that uncertainty around what's actually going to be implemented.
I agree.